Good evening, everyone. Wow, it is so phenomenal to see so many of you in the room with us this evening. Thank you so much for joining us for our Skin and Soul event here at Soho House. For those that I have not yet met, my name is Victoria Smart and I am from the Beauty Triangle. And I'm really honoured and very excited to be joined this evening by three fantastic practitioners who I'm actually personally very excited to be interviewing, selfishly. And we're going to be discussing the routes to optimise our complexion, our gut and our mind, because I'm sure we can all agree that our skin is so interconnected with so many parts of our bodies. Not only aesthetically can it be concerning, but it can also play a lot of toll on our minds and our self-esteem. So this evening we're going to be discussing the routes to address the concerns when they arise, whether that is topical skincare or the solutions that we can find in clinic. Perhaps that's diving a little bit deeper and considering our lifestyle choices, whether that's nutrition or balancing our hormones. Or perhaps that's thinking about our minds, whether that's reducing stress or trying to calm our nervous system, or perhaps aligning our energy. Now those are just a few of the things that we're going to be discussing this evening. But just before we do, just some housekeeping. On your seats you should have found a programme, and in fact we sold far more tickets than we thought we would, so if you haven't got one and you'd like some more information about the practitioners here, on our website there is all of the information on our events page, so if you wanted to read about them, please feel free to do so there. You also should have a referral card, so should you wish to be connected with any of the people that you speak this evening, please just pop your details there and we will connect you. And please don't leave without your goodie bag. In there you have a fantastic product from a brand called Alvi, who I'm sure we're going to be hearing more about from Rachna shortly. And finally, just a few words about the Beauty Triangle before we begin. We launched 6 years ago now in order to educate and empower audiences on all areas of their well-being, but really importantly from a holistic point of view, which is why you'll always find 3 practitioners, each of whom are a real expert in their chosen field on our panels. But we also launched in order to connect you, our audiences, with some of the most authoritative voices within wellbeing, so you can make personalised, safe and sustainable decisions about your health. Which brings me very neatly to introduce today's panellists. We have oculoplastic surgeon and esteemed aesthetic doctor, Ms. Rachna Murthy.
Thank you.
We have naturopathic nutritionist and the founder of a fantastic handbook of how to balance your hormones, Jessica Shand. And we have mind-body therapist, Reiki practitioner and breathwork coach, Katie Light. Now that's enough from me. I'm going to hand over to our speakers to say a very quick hello, and then we will get started with the main conversation. Rachna.
It's taken me 20 years to say ophthalmic, so don't worry about it. Thank you, Victoria. It's a real pleasure to be here and speak to you all today. And thank you very much for coming out on a rainy Monday. And it's so exciting to see you all here. So I'm a oculoplastic surgeon. I was an NHS consultant for 13 years in Cambridge. I worked with a lot of patients who had an autoimmune condition called thyroid eye disease, and they had skin issues as well as gut issues, a lot of stress triggering their autoimmune disease. So it's, for me now as an aesthetic practitioner who deals with skin and surgery and aesthetic treatments, it's really coming full circle to be able to talk about how we can look after our skin from the inside out, and it's going to be a real pleasure to speak to you about this today.
Thank you, Rachna. Jessica.
Hi everyone, I'm Jessica Shand. I'm a naturopathic nutritionist and a women's health specialist, and as Victoria said, I've written a book called The Hormone Balance Handbook, and yeah, just really excited to get into the conversation.
Thank you, Jessica. And Katie.
Hi, I'm Katie. Is that working?
Oh, that's better.
It's working.
Yeah.
And I am a mind and body therapist, practitioner. I also do facials, holistic facials, and breath work, and coaching, and craniosacral therapy. And I combine it all together for clients depending on what they come in with. And then we put treatments together.
Magic hands. Katie has magic hands. So Rachna, we're going to start with you. And I think it's really interesting what you mentioned there, because you mentioned all of these parts of this industry coming together and taking a holistic approach. Who are the people that you see in your practice and what are their main concerns?
Well, as an eye specialist and an oculoplastic surgeon, most people come to me for eyelid plastic surgery, upper lid hooding and lower lid bags, but also tear trough issues, dark circles. But no patient comes to my room and has surgery or any treatment without having a full discussion about what's caused those problems. And very often, when we get down to the bottom of things, there are lots of other things causing skin issues and sagging. And very often it's related to things that are going on in the environment and also in the gut. So most of the things that are affecting our skin are due to changes in the environment and the microbiome of our skin, and also changes in our diet and our hormones and what's going on in our gut. And that's something that, I discovered treating people with autoimmune conditions.
Can you explain exactly what the microbiome is? Because I feel like it's definitely having a moment, but the explanation is important.
So it was actually many hundreds of years ago that the godfather of medicine actually described the microbiome, and all diseases stem from the gut. And actually, even though all diseases don't stem from the gut, I think we're finding more and more that what we put into our gut is reflected in our skin. And you can, sitting in this audience, I'm sure you'll all relate to this, and I relate to it, that if I have something to eat, suddenly I will come up with a breakout if there are certain allergies. Or if I'm in a room full of mold, and we have a lot of mold in the UK, then also that affects our microbiome. So what is the microbiome? It's a really topical thing, but it's been around forever, and our microbiome is basically trillions of bacteria and viruses that live in our body, but also on our skin, which is the biggest organ, and every little orifice. So in our noses, in our mouth, in our eyes, every orifice has its own little ecosystem. And I love the analogy of a rainforest. Particularly, most of you here will know the microbiome. Who here hasn't heard about the microbiome? Like, everyone has heard about the microbiome, which is brilliant. But how do we look after our microbiome? What are we doing to our microbiome on a daily basis? And how can we enhance our microbiome to make us more resistant? So the microbiomes are like a rainforest, and basically we have bacteria and organisms in our gut which are like the plants in a rainforest or the animals in a rainforest, and they're supplied by nutrients. So in a rainforest it will have rain and soil, and that's where things like prebiotics, and this terminology is quite difficult to understand, but prebiotics are the things that supply and support the probiotics, which are the bacteria that are in our gut, and we can supplement these things. And then there are postbiotics, which is basically how how the organisms communicate. So the gut bacteria produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, and that's how they communicate with each other and send messages through the neural networks in the gut to the brain and to the skin, and these produce the outcome. So the flushing that you might see if you suffer from a condition called rosacea is related to what's going on in the gut, and rosacea is extremely common, so it affects 1 in 10 people, and there is an ocular rosacea, and that's where it's really important for me to not just go and do an operation on somebody or do some aesthetic treatments. I ask about their diet and the nutrients that they're getting in their diet. I ask about what they're putting on their skin and the skin barrier and how that might be affected.
You mentioned rosacea then. I find it really fascinating. I've heard you say before about the connection between dry eye and rosacea. Is that something that we should be looking out for as well?
Yeah, rosacea is extremely common. So 1 in 10 of this audience will have rosacea, and 80 to 90% of people with rosacea will have some sort of eye issue related to it. And that may be subclinical. That means that you may not have problems of dryness, but it is affected by our hormones, and our hormones change as we get older. If we're talking about women, we may have perimenopause anytime from 35 up to 50. It's a wide range, and our hormones will impact our skin, and it will impact our metabolism of food and nutrients. And I know you're going to talk more about this, so I'm not going to steal your thunder with this at all. But our hormones do go up and down based on what we eat. And there is such a thing called the estrobolome, which is the microbiome that cleaves estrogen in our gut. And so that can also affect our hormones, and that can affect our skin, and that can affect our eyes, because the skin of the eyes extends to the eyelid, and the eyelid microbiome affects the eye surface.
It's fascinating that you mentioned that inside-out approach, but I'd also love to ask you about topical solutions. So when we're talking about the microbiome of the skin, how can we be taking care of the skin from the outside?
Am I allowed to talk about the inside as well as the outside? Yeah. So I think hopefully you'll get a goodie bag, and in the goodie bag there is a probiotic range, and you mentioned Obvi, and I found Obvi, so I'm not actually selling Obvi, but it's available on the Beauty Triangle Boutique now, so which is fantastic. But we have to look after our gut, and this goes back to the trillions of bacteria and viruses in our gut. We're not able to replace all those trillions, and there is some research about what things can cause skin issues, and what Obvi have done is they've actually put together 3 proprietary lactobacilli strains which have been shown to look after and enhance skin health. So a topical solution is not going to be the only thing. You do have to look after what's going on in the gut. But the topical solutions are things that support that probiotic. So we're talking about prebiotics. And in the skincare, there are prebiotics like inulin. I don't know whether you've heard of inulin. It's a really calming agent. And the obvious solutions actually have it in their topicals. Inulin has been harnessed from the bacteria that live in sort of on cacti and arid desert, so they have to withstand extremes of temperature and other environmental changes. And so our microbiomes in the gut and in the skin are our barriers, and they're our barriers to inflammation. And inflammation can lead to autoimmune disease, and autoimmune disease can lead to cancers. And, you know, if we're going to want to do aesthetic treatments, we have to start at the very beginning, and that's by looking after our barriers and not doing just the aesthetic treatments and just the surgery, which is why every single patient of mine in clinic will be on this range.
It's interesting what you say about using things like cacti, using nature's resources actually to build our own skin barriers. When it comes to skincare, it can be a minefield, and you say that you advise your patients to be doing a consistent skincare regime before they see you. What else do you recommend alongside the cleanse that we've been discussing?
So I start with taking away some of the toxins, first of all. So, you know, we've all become retinol junkies. We want to increase our collagen, and yeah, we're dropping collagen from the age of 30 very, very rapidly. By the time we get to 50, we've got 50% of the collagen that we started off with.
That's terrifying.
Which is terrifying. And yes, we've all been told to use retinols all over our faces because that enhances the collagen in our skin. But actually, retinol can be really drying, and when our hormones change, that can impact the skin barrier, and it can destroy the microbiome of the skin. So retinols, particularly around the eyes, can be really drying for the eyelid glands, which means that you're actually enhancing that dry eye condition that 1 in 10 of us will have, and will get worse as we get older. So we start by getting rid of all of the nasties. And I work with an AI company now, a health tech company, where I'm trying to advise in terms of how, as consumers, we can look for nasties in our cosmetics. Because if you'll pick up a cosmetic product, it'll have some ingredients on it. You probably won't recognize any of the words, and it's a foreign language, and you won't know whether it's good for you. But marketing can really sell us products, and we could well be buying snake oil that could be doing nothing or causing harm.
There's the apps you can get on your phone now as well, right, where you scan and it says green, orange,
well,
red.
Some of them are like yucca, some of you might have heard about, but they don't have the actual data in terms of the scientific research. So the company that I've helping and collaborating with is launched now. It's called Nbody, nbody.me, ENBODIE, and it's going to be available for anyone to look at. And we'll eventually have a system where companies will have to put barcodes on their products, just like we have with food, because there are a lot of things in our products that have endocrine disruptors that can cause our children to grow breasts when they're male children, and you know, we can get breast cancer from the products that we don't know about. And so, yeah, get rid of the toxins. Try and, because I waffle a lot, sorry. Get get rid of the retinols near your eyes in particular, and then look after your skin by working from the inside and out with things that will give you resilience and help you not just improve your aesthetic, but have better aesthetic outcomes with the treatments that you're having, and also potentially have better health span and longevity and wellness. And this is where the whole mind and nutrition is linked in, because our gut is responsible for making a hormone called serotonin. And 80% of serotonin, which is a happy hormone, is made in the gut. So if we look after our gut, we'll also be happier and look better and live longer. So, it's a win-win-win.
It's interesting that you mentioned the aesthetic treatments there, but also saying how it's important that we balance our mind as well, which it is. If we are at that stage where we're exploring aesthetic treatments and it really is the Wild West, how do we know what we should be looking for? What are the questions to be asking the practitioners? But also, what are you offering in your clinic?
Yes, so hopefully you'll come to me. But if you don't come to me, then make sure that you ask how long they've been doing particular procedures, how many of them do they do if it's surgery. Ask to look at before and afters. Ask to find out how long this particular product and device or whatever they're injecting has been around, because trends come and trends go. You've all heard about salmon sperm facials, and you've all heard about exosomes, but they come from all around the world, and there is no regulation in a lot of these things. So do ask the questions and ask to see before and afters. Ask about whether or not they are regulated and how much experience your particular practitioner has had with these products. I have to say that Botox has been around for a long time. It's a really safe treatment. It's very preventative, and actually if you start using Botox at an early stage for the whole face, I have a lot of patients who are in their 30s who are using Botox with me in clinic, and you can reduce the need for having an upper lid blepharoplasty. You can use Botox to raise your brows by about 3 or 4 millimeters. And if you compare that with the endoscopic brow lift, which is when you tunnel underneath the forehead and then lift the brows up, which gives you 5 millimeters and lasts for about maybe 3 to 5 years and can cost you thousands of pounds, well, £30,000. Botox is actually really good value. So, those are the questions to be asking. Ask about what's appropriate for your age, and ask about how long, these treatments have been around for.
Which other treatments are you offering? Because I know that a few of us, such as myself, are terrified of needles. So injectables aren't always the way. There are so much technologies available now. Is that anything, or lasers that you're offering in your clinic as well to optimise the skin health, not just the appearance?
Yeah, so we have a whole toolbox. So we have a clinic and when I say we, I work with a consultant oculoplastic surgeon. We're really unique because there are no two consultant surgeons who work together. And yes, we've got 2 eyes, and we've been working together for 10 years nearly now, and we operate together, and we provide a really seamless pathway for our patients. And we have in our toolbox surgery, we have skincare that you go home with, we have low-level light and intense pulse light to treat dry eyes, as well as optimize the skin before and after any surgery or treatments. We also have the world's latest and most innovative laser, that is ablative laser, which is called the ultra clear laser. It's a cold laser in inverted commas. I mean, it still produces heat, but I'm sure you've all heard about CO2 laser resurfacing, and it's able to produce dramatic changes in skin tightness, but it can be 4 months, sometimes 6 months of downtime. And with the ultra clear laser, that's been reduced to weeks, like a couple of weeks at most, even just 10 days with some settings.
And is that the difference between an ablative and non-ablative laser?
It's ablative. It's an ablative laser, but they've enhanced the technology so that all the heat is dissipated. And so you get very targeted treatment with the laser. And the brilliant thing is that it's not just aesthetic. It can actually reduce the risk of non-melanoma skin cancer. So everything we do in clinic is looking at health span and prevention. And that's how, when I went to medical school, I didn't learn about prevention, but that's what we all want. We don't really want to be having to come and see people like me to have treatments. And I don't believe that I should be offering papering over cracks. I want to do something that will last a long time for you, but will also reduce the need for you to have diseases and need for you to have other treatments.
It comes back to the idea of longevity that we're all hearing so much about at the moment, how we can extend our lifespan, but also the years that we're living and be happy within those years.
Yeah, we want to live our longest lives, but healthiest, and be our best selves for that length of time.
And if surgery is the next option, how do we go about doing that, and what are the surgical techniques that you're using?
Yeah, so again, it's really unique because all the surgery is under local anaesthetic. It's really minimal downtime. We've thought about every single part of the procedure. So with local anaesthetic, you don't need to be knocked out for eyelid surgery. It's skin deep. And we can achieve outstanding results. And we don't work on before and afters. Everything is from word of mouth. We have many patients who are very discreet. And they don't want to show their before and afters, but we do demonstrate before and afters in the clinic if you come to see us. And the surgery is quick, so upper lid surgery is, within 35 minutes, it's done. And a lot of our patients have described it like a spa-like experience. So actually, it's less invasive than having laser and less invasive than having some injectables. So you may want to come for surgery rather than the injectables.
Considering it. How do you make it such a lovely experience? I've heard all about the music that you play, the sense that you have in the clinic.
Yeah, so, we're very holistic. So, we look after the microbiome, we get the skin optimized. And then we have everybody on a 3-way WhatsApp group. So, your doctor is contactable 24/7, which is what most people don't provide as a surgeon because, you don't want to be contacted by your patients. But no, we want to be there for our patients and look after them. And most of our patients stay on to have injectables and other things as well. And we have alpha wave music, alpha wave sounds, which sounds a little bit woo-woo, but it actually, it zones our mind into this state of relaxation. And so we don't need to have a general anesthetic. You don't need to be having a tube down your throat. You don't need to be under heavy sedation. And it takes a really good surgeon to be able to chat to you, do the surgery, and have you out and looking like you've not had anything done except for what you wanted to come for, which is the eyelids, and minimal bruising. So we have a cocktail of drugs that we use, which include something called tranexamic acid, which a lot of people are on for melasma. It's actually an anti-bruising drug. A lot of people are on it for heavy periods, and it's something that is used around America in many surgeries. But because there are two surgeons, we work together, we constantly challenge each other to improve our things that we do for our patients so that their experience is as easy as can be. And this is how we've set it up, so that if it was my friend, my family member having a treatment with me, this is how I would want it to be, and that's what we want to try and achieve.
Sounds really nice, to be honest. The music sounds very calming. If we're looking to do things from home, Rachna, where does technology come into this? And I know that Will's probably speak about it, Katie, but what should we be using from home? We hear a lot about LED and all the devices that we can be purchasing. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, so I've written a few articles on this, and so I've done a little bit of research. There are some clinical grade LEDs around, and I don't support any particular brand, but Dermalux Flex is a good one. But many companies have brought out their own LEDs, and even some of my colleagues have made their own LEDs. It's really easy to make a red light, but it's the different wavelengths and the intensity of the wavelength or the energy, and also the regulation of the heat. So heat produces inflammation. Inflammation can produce pigmentation. Red light and certain wavelengths can help with improving collagen. Blue light can help to reduce bacteria, and yellow light can help to reduce lymphatic swelling. In our machines that we have in clinic, they're FDA approved, and they've been working with NASA technology. So that's the level of regulation that they have to have for the clinic. And if you're going to use home devices, you're going to need to use it for 3 minutes every single day for 3 years to get the similar kind of results that you might achieve in clinic. So yes, they're good, but I would recommend not spending loads and loads of money on something like this. You can probably spend maybe the same amount to have 3 or 4 treatments throughout a year, and you'll get a better result with it in clinic.
Consistency is key. when it comes to the
Consistency
homework?
is key, and I would say actually focus on your skincare, look after your microbiomes. That is probably better for you than using any home LED light.
And my final question, Rachna, 3 tips that you have for our audience to look after their microbiome.
Well, of you. No, I'm kidding.
The goodie bags.
Yeah, just get plenty of, and I know you're going to talk about this, but plenty of fiber and sort of the prebiotics in your diet is going to support your microbiome in your gut. So it's not just taking supplements of probiotics. Although probiotics are good, there are trillions of bacteria and viruses, so you're not going to be able to replace everything that you need. So eat a healthy diet and get the fiber in. And if you can't get the fiber in through your gut, then there are supplements like myota, which can give you more fiber. Look after your skin microbiome. So try and get rid of all the sort of toxins. Have a look at the ingredients in your ingredient list, and even go to these sort of apps that can help you cut out the noise and get rid of the minefield. And I think it is good to be consistent with your sleep and with your skincare and your nutrition. And so think about all the pillars of wellness to improve your skin. And skin health is really linked with disease. There are lots of studies coming out now that show that if you have bad skin, you can get increased heart disease. So it works both ways. So do look after your skin, and if you can improve your skin health and inflammation in your skin through the inside and out, then you can reduce the risk of lots of diseases.
Thank you so much, Rachna. And on that, I remember you once telling me about eye makeup products, and I went home and went through my whole makeup bag because you alarmed me. So that's something that I know you speak a lot on as well, so that's always super helpful. You've got lots of information about that on your Instagram.
Don't use your mascaras for over 3 months, because they do have I can talk about this, so I'm not going to bore you with it. But most mascaras and shampoos and other products will have formaldehyde in it. Formaldehyde is used as a preservative, and it's also used to preserve cadavers, right? So it's not something you necessarily want to know about or put on your skin or your hair or your eyelashes, but that's what a lot of formaldehyde-derived compounds go into mascaras. And because these things don't have to be regulated, then that they have to be in the products because they're reducing bacteria. But discard your used mascaras after a few months, change your makeup regularly, and avoid sort of harsh acids near your eyes, and look out for the toxins in your cosmetics.
So much. I need a notepad too. Thank you so much, Rachna. That was brilliant. If anyone has any questions, we'll be taking questions and answers at the end. Thank you. Jessica. I'm very excited to speak to you, Jessica, because as Rachna has already said, the microbiome and the gut is such an important part when it comes to our overall well-being. But I feel like we're also discussing more and more about hormones now, which is really exciting because it's been something that can be quite taboo within this industry. Could you just start by telling us who are the people that you see and what are their main concerns?
So firstly, thank you for having me. It's a really wide array of different symptoms and conditions that clients come to me for. So it can be irregular cycles, it can be perimenopause symptoms, it can be gut, digestion, skin, and so it can be lots of things. And sometimes a client will come to me with one thing, one symptom or one challenge or issue, and when we dig deeper, because I do this whole kind of extensive form that they fill out, food diary, food, mood and symptom diary. We do something called a life audit, which I'll talk to you about later. Quite often we're talking about hormones, but we're actually talking about lots of different areas of their health. And so my whole approach is a whole body approach. In my book, every chapter is a different body system, because I believe that hormones, it's not just about our hormone levels per se, it's not just about our lab test results, it's not just about those things, important, but it's not the be all and end all. It's about how we feel, it's about what's coming up for us. So it can be a really wide range of different kind of symptoms and signs and signals that our bodies give us, and sometimes we actually don't know how to articulate that, because we might feel something and then it becomes normal. I think we can probably all relate to that in some way. And so I'm all about getting to the root of the problem, treating the patient as a whole, and really getting right in there and being able to make long-term sustainable change through nutrition and lifestyle practices.
I love what you say there about things being common. I remember once when speaking about female health, someone said to me, so many things are common but not normal. We normalise so many problems when it comes to especially female health, but health in general. Can you tell me a little bit about this life audit? Because you mentioned here that you take a really personalised approach, which is so important, and we're seeing so much more about personalised nutrition. What is the life audit, and what can we be looking out for when we are feeling overwhelmed?
So the life audit is essentially, I'm not going to talk about it for ages because otherwise I'll go off on a tangent, but the life audit is essentially it's like an opportunity to really tune in to what is happening, what is coming up for you, those signs, those signals, and you start by taking like a 7 to 14 day, the longer the better actually, the longer you can do this, the more evidence and the more kind of like feedback you gather, and then you've got more to work from. But say start with 7 days, maybe in like the notes app on your phone or a journal, just start logging, like literally like noting down what you're eating, but more importantly than that, how you actually feel. So how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? How do you feel before a meal? What's coming up that you know that you might think is normal, but that's the whole point of doing this practice and this process, because it allows you to see in black and white, okay, you know, I'll just give an example, but maybe at 3 o'clock every afternoon you are craving sugar and it's so bad that you have to eat sugar, like, or maybe it's a headache, or maybe it's a certain time in your cycle and you know, certain symptoms are coming up. That's why it's better to do it for longer. But you gather this information, this invaluable information, and then you can start, it almost gives you like a starting point, a foundational starting point that you can then start drawing connections between symptoms and how you're feeling, where you are in your cycle, what else is going on in your life as well. And you can start creating your own wellness plan. And obviously, if you can work with a naturopathic nutritionist or a health practitioner, then amazing. But you can do this yourself. Like, you can literally start taking, you know, documenting things. It's always going to be a good thing. And even taking that to your practitioner is like gold dust for you, but also for the practitioner, because then you're going in one step ahead. And I think it's to be able to tune into your body and to be able to actually acknowledge what's coming up is always going to be so valuable.
It's that education piece.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about your book. You break it down so beautifully and you make it really easy to understand, because it can really be a minefield. And you mentioned the sugar cravings there. That's something definitely guilty at 3 o'clock, going straight to the biscuit tin. When it comes to skin, how do you see nutrition impacting the skin? I know that we've spoken a lot here about gut. Is that something that you see in your clinic as well?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I actually agree so much with what you said. I could say exactly the same thing, so I'm not going to repeat things. But yeah, I mean, as we know, the skin is our largest organ, and what goes on internally quite often manifests and shows up externally. It's a really good visual indicator as to what is going on. So yeah, it's really powerful to know that and to remind ourselves of that, because it's in our power to make changes, and it's, you know, you can by changing what you eat and how you nourish your body, but also how you eat and your lifestyle and all of those things, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute. You have the power to make changes in your skin, and I've seen incredible results in my clinic for, you know, all sorts of different skin conditions, rosacea, acne, you know, lots of different skin issues. And the one thing that they all have in common is, like 9 times out of 10, probably like 97% of the time, it's something to do with the gut or elimination pathways, not eliminating properly. And when we say this word elimination, it's like, what does that actually mean? Like, how does that apply to me?
What does it mean? What are you referring to?
It's basically one of the most important ways to maintain homeostasis in our body. And what I mean by that is balance in our bodies. And it means that the stuff that needs to be excreted and that needs to go out is actually going out, and it's not stagnant in your body and you're not carrying it. And that's toxins in the environment, in skincare products, plastics, drinking water out of a plastic bottle, heating food in plastic, in your microwave, putting plastic in the dishwasher. There are so many ways that endocrine disruptors get into our bodies and leach in. But it's also, I actually forgot
elimination pathways.
Elimination pathways, yeah, sorry. So it's basically our biggest detoxification process. So that's, we're thinking about the liver and we're thinking about the gut. So we're thinking about our bowel movements, our stools, we're thinking about sweat, we're thinking about urine. But thinking specifically about digestion and gut health, a lot of my clients who come to me with congested skin or inflammation in the skin, there is a direct link with their digestive health and how many bowel movements they're having. Some people really think it's quite normal not to have a bowel movement every single day. And when I ask them about that and dig deeper, they're like, yeah, but that's just normal. That has always been the way for me to have like one every couple of days, or sometimes even longer. And that isn't normal. And it's so important to make changes and really get the bowels moving. You know, you get the pre and probiotics in there, obviously the fibre, and hydration to actually facilitate a bowel movement, because quite often, you know, people will say to me, oh, but I eat so much fibre, but I'm just so bloated. And it's like, you're probably not drinking enough water, because the two go hand in hand. And it's also supporting the liver, supporting bile production. So we're thinking about bitter greens, we're thinking about bitter greens like rocket. So rocket is a really good one. It stimulates our digestive enzymes, and it really helps with the whole digestion process. But yeah, when we think about elimination, we're thinking essentially getting out what needs to go out, the toxins, the used hormones in our bodies, and making sure they are actually moving in the right direction. Yeah, because what happens, what can happen is that if you are not eliminating properly and effectively, it can be reabsorbed into your bloodstream, and you can quite literally be carrying it with you. So carrying it around with you. So something that I see quite often are women saying to me, okay, they realise they are constipated, and they're like, okay, I'm also quite low energy, and having lots of different issues around like energy production, and it's all so interlinked. And that's why it is so important to see the body as a whole and what we can do to support each of our body systems, but almost like taking the science out of it, because I think the science is really interesting, don't get me wrong, I love it. I could sit here all day telling you all about the ins and outs of what our hormones do and why. That is really interesting to know. But for me, I love to bridge the gap between the science and how we can actually integrate these things into our lives, because I think if we don't know how to actually make changes and to make, you know, like changes to our lifestyle, changes to our mindset, changes to the way that how we feel about ourselves, showing up for ourselves and knowing that we're worth taking care of, then almost like, what's the point in knowing all of that stuff if we can't make the changes?
It's applying those changes and being consistent, like Rachna said.
Exactly.
We're hearing so much about fibre. I feel like that's the cool kid on the block when it comes to nutrition. How can we be getting more fibre if it's not through these gels or all these other synthetic products too?
I would definitely recommend not even going there with like gels and stuff. Like as a starting point, I would literally be thinking about actual fibre from food, so like root vegetables, beans, legumes, and just building your plate, like thinking about half of your plate being different colourful plant varieties. They're all going to bring a different array of vitamins, minerals, but also that essential fibre to support our gut health and to support those elimination pathways. But yeah, just simply thinking of it like, okay, what can I add in? Like I think like beans and legumes and stuff, they're so easy, it's so accessible, and it's so easy to like stir some into a curry or even pasta. When I make pasta for my little boy who's 5, I will always put chickpeas or borlotti beans or, you know, a bean in there, and he doesn't even like, he just used to it because he doesn't know any different, but he doesn't ever say like, oh, I don't like this chickpea in here, because he, you know, it's just part of the pasta, and it significantly increases the fibre content of that meal, and that is going to be incredible for your gut, for your plant points, for all of the things that I just mentioned, but also fermented foods as well. And I think that is a really
it's like kimchi.
Yeah, kimchi, sauerkraut, and again, really easy to add on the side of eggs, or to add to a salad, or stir into like a pasta sauce or something. But that is also like another really easy win in terms of like supporting the gut microbiome, getting the plant diversity in there. But it is really important to make sure that we are properly hydrated if you're going to increase the fibre in your meal, because otherwise you will feel bloated.
How much water do you recommend drinking per day?
I recommend around 2 to 2.5 litres, but it really, there's a general kind of like rule of thumb, I'd say between 2 and 2.5. And obviously like herbal teas and stuff, it all counts. So.
And can we speak a little bit about the liver? Because we're entering party season, so this is something I personally also need to take care of.
Essential.
How can we look after our livers? It's a really important elimination pathway, and something that we're speaking more about now.
Yeah, it's essential. And I think sometimes when we think about liver detox, we think about this like cleanse or like 3-day juice cleanse or something like that. And I write this in my book. I talk about this whole chapter about the liver and the recipes to support the liver. And I I would love everyone to do in terms of supporting their liver is to think of it as like a daily detox, and like to kind of like remove the stigma around what a detox actually is, because we can support the way that our body detoxifies and the way that our liver can actually work for us by just eating like things like bitter greens, like I've already mentioned, because of that bile stimulation and the digestive enzymes. That's so important when it comes to liver health. But also hydration, adding anti-inflammatories in there, like ginger. There's actually a recipe in my book called the Immunity Tea Cubes, and it's turmeric, ginger, and lemon as well, lots of lemon, and you just literally blitz it all up and put them into ice cubes, and then you just like put it into a cup with boiling water every morning. And that is such a good way to support your liver and to get everything moving. Rehydrate after sleep, because we lose so much hydration when we sleep. Staying really hydrated again is such a low-hanging fruit, and we all know, and it's kind of really basic. And you'll probably look at me thinking, yeah, we know that we need to drink enough water, but actually so many people don't drink enough water, or drink water from plastic bottles, which is like a massive no-no.
Be careful.
Yeah.
How do you feel about electrolytes?
I'm actually personally a big fan of electrolytes. I think you just need to make sure that the electrolyte brand that you're using doesn't have things like sweeteners in there, or emulsifiers and extra stuff that then your body then has to detoxify.
But they make them taste so good.
Yeah, I know, but I think it's you kind of have to do.
Sure
there's really good brands. There's a brand called Ocean that is a really good one. That doesn't have anything in there. And I think as well, like even if you didn't buy an electrolyte powder, you could just get some really good quality sea salt and put it into water, and help to replenish your minerals. But yeah, that's another good thing, another good way to support the liver. And also, you can't talk about the liver without talking about the gut, because the two go hand in hand. So again, all of these things, it all comes back, it all kind of like marries up, which is why in my book it is all about, kind of like nourishing all of the body systems in this way of, it's not like, okay, today I'm going to support my liver and tomorrow I'm going to support my skin or my, neurotransmitters. It's about like building, it's about changing your approach to actually how you build your meals and why. And I think the why part of it is so significant and so overlooked, especially in the world of nutrition and nutritionists. Because it's not just, for me, it's so not just about the food, even though I'm so passionate about food and using food as medicine, but also supporting our nervous system, it's about how we live our lives. It's about that as well.
You speak a lot, and you mentioned it earlier, about mindful eating, and like you say, the way that we're consuming the food, not just what we're consuming. Why is this so important for our overall well-being?
I think actually having that connection to our bodies is mind-blowing and game-changing. And when I started properly doing that, connecting with my body, actually like becoming really aware, bringing presence to my meal times rather than just like wolfing it down or like going on Instagram whilst I'm eating my lunch or replying to an email. Like, we're all guilty of it, because sometimes this is just life, like it's just the way it is and we're busy. But actually thinking about the fact that we have 3 meal times, we have 3 opportunities every single day that we can nourish our bodies and support ourselves. And if you think about it, like lunch is what going to take, you could probably have lunch in like 7 minutes, maybe, depending on what it is. So even if you spent like 3 or 4 of those minutes just tuning into your body, and when I say tuning in, again, it can sound a bit like, okay, how do you actually do that? What does that mean? What does it look like? And it can simply mean chewing your food really, really well so that it's really mushy in your mouth before you swallow it. That process of chewing is amazing for your digestive system. It helps break down the food, especially if you have digestive issues. That's going to be really, really helpful. But also just like acknowledging the tastes and the different flavors, the textures, even like the temperature of the food. It's like really amazing, like a positive feedback loop, and really kind of like supports this gut-brain connection. And also it's really good for hunger hormones and supporting your metabolism, and not overeating, not over-consuming, because your brain can't focus on Instagram and
eating.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like our best natural weight management tool available to us, and it's literally in our bodies. It's free, and I think it's something that is really overlooked, because I think sometimes it's more exciting to buy the latest thing, or get the latest like biohack, or the latest kind of like, but actually the things that are actually going to move the needle and make real fundamental changes to your hormonal health and how you feel, because our hormones dictate everything and how we feel and influence pretty much every single body system, you need to make those kind of like those, you know, go back to basics, you know,
take it back
change
to basics.
Yeah, exactly. The foundational kind of basics are going to make all the difference.
I remember you once telling me to close my eyes whilst I was eating to chew properly.
Yeah.
And I looked wacky, but it works.
I know. That's the thing. Like half of these things, you know, people are like, okay, but I'm not going to sit there in the office, like closing my eyes. But firstly, people are not really watching what we're doing. And secondly, for like even a minute, like if we're at home, obviously it's much easier to do that, but even a minute is going to help. It's going to really strengthen that gut-brain connection, and it's going to, you just get so much more joy from so much more experience out of your mealtime. And I truly think that the joy from it and the experience of your mealtime is like gold dust, because you get that positive feedback loop. Then you want to eat healthily. You want to get that feeling, because it feels so good. You want to continue that feeling, and then your brain is like, reminds you of how good that felt in that moment, and then you're more likely to continue with it. Whereas if you're, and then it goes, this is full circle, then it goes back to the plant varieties and the different herbs and spices. That's another way to increase
fibre. So like 30
well.
Plants per week we should be eating of fresh different colours.
And it sounds a lot, and we all know this, like people like Tim Spector, and there's so much out there about fibre, but it is so much easier than we think. Like herbs and spices, every different colour on your plate, count colours, not calories, all this stuff we know, but it's actually a really good reminder. And this whole process of eating intuitively, and I write about this a lot in my book, and the steps you can take to really connect with your body and get more out of your meal times. It goes so far beyond just getting more joy or just like connecting. It's about how you feel about food and your relationship with food, and that just goes such a long way. And when I did this and started to make the changes and really connect with my body like that, which I actually found really hard to do in the beginning, especially when you're not used to it, because you just think it's just fuel, I need to eat
and go.
Exactly. When I started making those changes, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like actually just adding a bit of seasoning onto like if I'm making a salad, like just putting a bit of like mixed Italian herbs or something on it with olive oil. Yeah, it just makes such a big difference. And I think it's like it's in these tiny little choices that we make at mealtimes that creates the experience that we have, and then that feeds into our overall well-being.
It's interesting what you say about finding joy in food, because often we can get so consumed with diets, fad dieting, everything that everyone's saying we should be doing, that it can become all-consuming. What are the 3 things that you recommend we do in order to benefit our gut, but also our skin when we're going through times of hormonal change?
I think do the life audit, because I think the life audit is a really good place to start, just to kind of like know where you're at. Because I think sometimes it's really hard to move forward or make changes if you don't know what you're working with. So I think go back to basics with that, understand what's coming up for you, and then when you do your food shop, before you even like, if you do like an online delivery, for example, before you get to doing that, map out what you're going to eat roughly. It doesn't have to be like perfect, but make sure that you kind of have a plan of action, and then you can see where the gaps are. You can be like, okay, maybe there's actually not enough fibre in that meal, so I'm going to add in another jar of chickpeas or something, or it's a really good way to actually see what you've got going into your food shop, and then the food shop is going to, obviously that's what's going to feed you. So I think that is a really good place to start. And then what was the other? One
more tip. That was 2.
The other tip, not really a tip, but and I've already said it, so I'm repeating myself, but just going back to the concept of the fact that we have 3 meals every day, 3 opportunities every day. And and on the way here, my friend, because I was looking over the questions, my friend said to me, but what if I just don't have time for breakfast, or what if I just skip breakfast? And I think it's like, you have to look, there's no right or wrong, we're all individual, we need to make things work for us. It doesn't have to be like so black and white, or like what someone on Instagram tells us to do. Like, it's more about actually how you feel. So if you're skipping breakfast and having coffee and picking up a pastry on the way to work, and you've also got some sort of like gut dysbiosis, or issues, like bloating, or your cycle, you've got bad PMS, for example, or something that is coming up for you that you don't want, and you want to make a change. If you want to make changes in that area, you have to go back to, this is why the life audit thing is actually really significant and is important, because you just have to know what is actually coming up. And I think we live on autopilot. We're just like waking up, doing our thing, being bombarded with what everyone thinks and telling us what to do, and we forget sometimes to tune into our own bodies and actually hear what's coming up. And our bodies are always giving us these invaluable signs and signals and communicating with us. And essentially that's what hormones are. They're chemical messengers. They are communicators. They're communicating something. And so it's our job to actually be able to tune in and listen. So whilst thinking about intuitive eating might sound a bit like, oh, it's a bit woo-woo, it's actually not. It's just about tapping in to what our bodies are designed to do and working with our bodies instead of, subconsciously maybe working against our bodies by doing things like skipping meals, running off too much caffeine, having a glass or bottle of wine, when life is hard or we're going through challenges. And it is, I know it's easy for me to sit here and say that, but actually I've been there, I've been through the whole thing. With my health, I had PCOS, I had hypothyroidism, fertility challenges. I know how hard it is to make changes, but it's so worth it. And I think that it's just, you just have to do the work. Essentially, you have to do the work, and then it gets easy, and then you don't. It feels so good that you don't want to not do it. And I think that's the way you want to get to. You want to live a life. You want to live a life where you love what
find
you're
joy
eating.
in those,
you find joy. You're finding ritual in yours. And I think creating rhythm and ritual in our lives is underestimated, and I think that's why I talk about these. I quite often go back to this. We have 3 meals, 3 opportunities, because they can become rituals.
I love that, rhythms and rituals. I'm
I'm
taking that. Stolen.
It's that, and it just sounds really basic, but I do think there is such power in it, and it's literally changed my life. So I know, and the lives of hundreds and hundreds of clients and people that I've worked with, and I know that it does make such a difference. But I think that you just have to do the work initially and get into the mindset. I think the mind plays such an incredible role in this whole conversation and what we're talking about in our skin, like how our skin shows up, and then going to the, in terms of inflammation and all
everything
of these
from
things.
the inside, which brings us very beautifully to speak about the mind. It's almost like we planned it. Thank you so much, Jessica. That was fascinating. I know that you're also giving access to everyone here to your ebook as well. So if you would like access to that, please do leave your email address and we can ensure that you receive a copy of that afterwards.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. And Katie.
Hi.
Into the mind. Like I said, I'm fascinated. I actually am convinced you potentially have magic hands, because you speak about touching the body and knowing what's happening within the body in a part that you're not even touching. And to me, it sounds, probably to others too, a bit woo-woo, but having experienced that and using energies within the body to make fundamental change is life-changing. Yeah. Who are the people that you see in your clinic, and what are their concerns?
I think you'd probably start with anxiety is the main condition, but that comes under so many different umbrellas, where you've got social anxiety, health anxiety, palpitations, how it's affecting you in the gut, how it's affecting you in the mind, like the mental anxiety, the physical, where you're actually stopped and you can't, you're in freeze and you can't go anywhere. So there's lots of different forms of anxiety that show up in my room. And that can be, somebody might have booked in for a body treatment, or they might have booked for a facial, but then I'm like, do you mind if we do a bit of this? This is what I'm sensing. For me, there's consultation absolutely when everybody comes in, to sort of know where that might be coming from. But a lot of the time I place my hands on the feet and then the body tells me where I need to go. So I will just, sense what's happening, as well as looking at what's going on with the face as well. So they'll have a facial and we'll look at what is going on, because you can't, like these lovely ladies have said, you can't treat one without the other. You have to treat the whole person. You can't, there's no way I'd be able to go, okay, yeah, let's just put some cream on or, do a bit of face massage without doing anything else.
Before we speak about the body, what can you tell from the face? You say that you can see from the face, and we often hear of facial mapping.
Yeah.
And we can tell where certain things are turning up on our face. Is that true?
Yes. So facial mapping you can do with, there's lots of different types of facial mapping. There's facial reflexology, and then there's emotions in the face. But you have meridian lines that run through the whole body, and those meridian lines run through those organs of the body. So if, for example, part like on the cheek, under the cheek and around sort of the nose and sort of around the cheek area is the stomach. So for me, I'd be going, okay, so how's your digestion? How's your sleep? How's your eating? If people are if they've got rosacea, I'll also be asking about, what's the, how's the dairy content? There's so much more to what's going on than just the, I've got a breakout on my, on my cheek. There's always a repeating pattern. And I think a lot of the time, I'm also with the anxiety. Another presenting problem is TMJ, so the temporal mandible joint, the frozen jaw, the grinding of the teeth, the clenching. Then you have got the emotion that's linked to that, which is frustration. So you're holding your breath because you're stressed and you're frustrated. So then it's all encompassing.
So what do you do to release the TMJ?
So I would do work with massage. So I would also figure out, is it the top jaw, is it the bottom, is it the neck? So I would do some possibly deep work. I would also do lymphatic drainage massage if needed, if it was puffiness as well. I would be looking at doing some cranial sacral, because again, that's all around the back of the neck, the front of the neck, all the fascia on the front here, on the chest and the shoulders.
What's the fascia? Can you explain to us what that is?
Yeah, so the fascia is like the new word for like when we were studying, which was called connective tissue. But it's the tissue and the fascia that is like a cage that goes all the way around the organs and the muscles and the tendons and the nerves. So it holds everything in place. But it's like one big sheet of your body. So if one area of your body is tight, then it's going to be tight in another area. So a lot of the time, if the jaw's tight, the hips are tight, because the fascia that comes down the front is pulling. So you've got to pull from one side to the other. So the cranial sacral therapy, you're holding and you're waiting for the tissue to change underneath your hands.
And is that a hands-on approach, or are you giving a massage when you do that?
It's a really gentle hands-on. So you're just touching. So you've got very, very, like you're sort of stuck with glue on the body, but there's no pressure involved. And then you're just waiting for that tissue to change, and you can sort of feel it unraveling itself under your hands, and then it might lead you to somewhere else in the body. But it doesn't need to always be deep, So it's not like the lymphatic drainage that we hear really pushing and moving all the fluid around the body. You're actually just talking about light touch. Yeah, so the light touch and the lymph system, the lymphatic system is just underneath the skin. So, it's quite superficial in the fact that it's high up. So it doesn't need to be deep. Sometimes you need to get in there to release the muscle. But then once you've done that and you're just holding the body, then you've got that release from a completely different level. And then that's when the emotion releases. And that's when sometimes the tears come,
When you speak about TMJ, you say about massaging the face. Is that something we can be doing from home? And if so, how?
Absolutely.
Just
Absolutely.
ask a friend.
Yeah. So really you want to sort of use a bit of product. It's easier sometimes to use a facial oil because you've got a bit more slip and glide. But it's also quite nice to inhale that as well. So, you can do a nice deep breath in, inhale the scent. But to get into the jaw and like pushing the jaw up towards the cheekbone, you just want the movement here. And I think, a lot of the time we're told not to move the face too much. We're actually getting into the muscle is you need to get that movement. And then all of a sudden you feel a release. But also with the TMJ, you can work inside the mouth as well. So sometimes it's just about learning how to hold that.
Is that the buccal massages that we're hearing a lot of at the moment?
Yeah, there is the buccal massage, but there's also from a cranial sacral perspective, you're just working on holding the tissue. So it's, again, very light. But then you could be in that position or I could be in that position for like 5 minutes. And actually, I know it sounds really weird, but having your finger in the mouth, you think, oh God, that's a bit invasive. But people have fallen asleep, within 5 minutes which is just weird, but it's so releasing.
I recently had that, and I felt the energy release that you say. As soon as it was inside, it was like just looseness in the mouth, but also with energy as well. It felt like I was going to cry.
Yeah.
What's the reason we're feeling that change of emotion?
Well, just the release, sometimes the trauma, so you might not be back in a dentist chair or whatever, but there is a lot of trauma that happens at certain times in our life, and the trauma gets stored in the tissue. So when you're releasing the tissue, then the trauma releases at the same time. And sometimes you don't need to know what that is. Sometimes it's really beneficial to know where that comes from. But, a lot of the time the tears just come because the tissue holds onto everything. So it's that, again, treating the mind and body, it's about treating the whole person and being able to let go of repeating patterns to bring in the new,
Where does Reiki come into your practice?
Reiki comes in when people are stuck. So if they're emotionally stuck and they're in a sort of frozen state where they can't move forward, either physically or mentally or emotionally. So we have 7 chakras that run through our system. And if we go under stress, then that chakra can just basically stop spinning very effectively. So we're trying to get that whole spinning flow. So you've got that whole energy flow of top to bottom so that you can function effectively. You've got energy, you can do things that you want to do, you can make things happen, and you're not back in the past. So Reiki comes in all the time. But, and I think I add it into my facials. And I think a lot of the time, whether it's craniosacral or Reiki, I'm holding the head to allow the conscious mind to just switch off so the unconscious mind can then function and relax.
Can you explain exactly what Reiki is? Because I feel like we're hearing a lot about it, but often it's not actually spoken about what you're actually doing with the energies.
So, yeah, Reiki is like, I would say, some of you might not know this, but like tuning in your radio to get the right frequency, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I can hear that. So it's the sort of, you're working on each of those chakras to retune and realign so that you have complete flow. So it's sometimes it can be hands-on, sometimes it's hands-off, but we are all energy. So, we attract people into our lives. We walk into a room and we all go, oh God, it just feels uncomfortable or cold, or, or something doesn't feel right. That's what energy is. And that is on the external and the internal. So we want to be in flow with that.
We hear more about self-Reiki. Is this something we can be doing ourselves?
You can. I mean, you can actually learn to do Reiki 1, which is about self-treatment. But really it's about sort of what you're wanting to bring in, what you're wanting to manifest, doing some meditation, doing some breath work, doing things that are helping to keep you grounded. Even just by placing your hand on your chest and your tummy, you can self-treat. It's that self-regulation where we're trying to get the nervous system, the parasympathetic, which is the cranial and the sacral, and then the sympathetic, which is the spine. So you've got like that eye. You're wanting to get all of those talking to each other and to self-regulate that, the brain and the gut, because the gut is our second brain. So, we have to, you can't really do one without the other.
And where does breathwork come into your practice? You mentioned it there, but that's also something that I feel like lots more people are exploring in their own time as well.
Yeah, so I think, breathwork is a whole another discussion, but as in there's so many different types. But I think actually what is really important is to get the diaphragm connected. So I think some of us are stomach breathers and some of us are chest breathers, but actually what you're wanting to do is to get a flow from the stomach all the way up to the chest, so a whole expansion. And when you breathe in, you want to be expanding like a balloon, and then when you breathe out, like a deflating of a balloon. And that then is engaging the diaphragm, which is then engaging the gut, which is then having a conversation with the vagus nerve to go, okay, we're okay, we're safe, we don't have to go into flight and fight mode here. So breathwork is definitely in all of my treatments. The first thing I do especially if people are finding it hard to really switch off, is to let's just do 5 deep breaths. And then let's see where your breath is. And then I help to look at the breath pattern, analyze it, and then go, right, okay, breathe into my hand and on the tummy a bit more. Then bring it all the way up to the chest and then let go. So it's retraining on how to breathe. But I think sometimes, well, we're never taught how to breathe. You know, nobody teaches us how to breathe properly. You know, it's just as we come into the world. But actually the diaphragmatic breath is... And a conscious connected breath is about going back to a baby breath, that you're not having to think about it. It's not forced, and there's no pausing going on.
What is conscious connected breath work?
So conscious connected breath work is to have that flow. So you are consciously connecting the inhale to the exhale. So you're not having any pausing going on. You know, a breath hold is important sometimes to just... you know, hold you in that space just to bring you back down if you're out of your body. But what we're trying to do is have that connected breath, that it's always connected and always circulating, so that you're not going out of your body. It's keeping you present. So when you are present, you then can release anything in your body that's stuck. Because sometimes we don't breathe into certain parts of our body, and then all of a sudden we do, and we're like, oh my God, what's that? And the whole big tears come, or, you know, body shaking or convulsing sometimes because the breath's going there. And then it's just like, oh God, that's great.
If we feel in a moment of fight or flight, how do you feel about something like box breathing? Are there any other techniques that you recommend to calm the nervous system almost immediately?
I think a box breathing's great, and I think a coherent breath, so in for 5 or in for 4 and out for 4, in for 5, out for 5. So keeping it equal, and that will help to balance and self-regulate. So that's a good starting point if you don't want to hold the breath, because the box breathing is like in for 4, hold, out for 4, hold, where... if you want to get into a conscious connected breath, the breathing in for 4 and breathing out for 4 gives you that time and the connection from inhale to exhale.
Fascinating. I'm trying to remember all of the things that you're saying to me about breath whilst I sit here nervously holding my breath. And you speak at the beginning about facial massage and using the right products, and we've spoken earlier about skincare. Mm-hmm. What role do things like oils or, like you mentioned, scents play when it comes to calming ourselves in some of these moments when potentially our skin is flaring up and we don't really want to put more on it, but we want to use these for other therapeutic purposes? Yeah, I think, you know, people, if you're using a good carrier oil, then that's great, but the essential oils will be emotive, so they will take you somewhere, you know, as in could be childhood or could be just back to having a nice relaxing treatment, and you're using it at home, and you are, the limbic system is taking you there by going, oh yeah, I remember what relax feels like, or you know, sometimes it can be the other way around, but most of the time it's about having that combination of smell that and sense that you want to use that's going to make you feel better. Because there's lots of different essential oils that are for different things, you know, like rose being uplifting and frankincense being really good for anxiety, you know, and helping clear our heads, and is used a lot in meditation. And, you know, so there are essential oils you can just inhale, you know, just as if you were doing a breathing, just to open up the respiratory system a little bit as well. Noted. And Katie, finally, what are the 3 things you recommend that we all take away from today in order to balance both our skin and our soul?
I think movement, dancing around the kitchen is always a good one, or putting some music on and just moving the body, getting everything going. Doing 5 minutes or even just 5 deep breaths when you get into bed, just to change state from daytime to nighttime, and so that you're in a nice relaxed state so that you can go to sleep properly. And face massage, you know, or general massage on the body. And actually, when you're breathing, when you are doing the breathing, you could just get the fingers around the rib cage and get into the solar plexus and try and open out the diaphragm a bit more so that the breath can come through.
Wow, okay. That sounds quite complex. I think I'll leave that to you.
But yeah, and then one more, I would say cold showers are also good. Okay. Or a little 30 seconds at the end of your shower. Again, really good for the hormones.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you. Well, everything that you've said there is so well connected, and it's taking that holistic approach, but also listening to ourselves and listening to our bodies. Thank you to everybody in the audience as well for joining us. I'm sure you'll agree that listening to all three of you has been truly fascinating. Like I say, please don't forget your goodie bag on the way out. And if there aren't any available, because they are limited, please just leave your name with Emily, who's at the back, and we will make sure that you get a product. We do have some time for some Q&As as well. If anyone does have any questions, please do raise a hand. If not, I know our speakers will be here for a little while afterwards. But all that's left from me is a big thank you to our amazing panellists for this evening. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. We do host a few events here, so keep your eyes peeled, and also a festival at 180 Strand in January where you can try almost everything that you ladies have been speaking about. So please do join us there. Enjoy your goodie bags. Like we say, that product's available at the boutique, so please go there if you fancy a restock. But thank you.
Do you want me to say a little bit about what's in the goodie bags?
Oh, go on. Ratchet's going to give you insight.
In the goodie bags, there's a skin biotic. It's a sachet which has the probiotic and some vitamin A and biotin. You just tear open the sachet. You have one a day on an empty stomach and have breakfast 30 minutes later. And it's something that within a few days you'll notice a real improvement in your skin health. Particularly, if there are any acne issues as well, that's something that will improve really rapidly. And you'll find it's a wonderful product. There may be some changes in your microbiome, so some people do get a little bit more redness initially, but then it settles down within a few days. So I'm sure you'll all love it. And thank you very much.
No, thank you. A big round of applause for our beauty.
Thank you.